So welcome to this version of Twirl Talk Tuesday, and I can't believe we're in week 6 of it. So this week is group thinking, and I told the panelists that I personally think that I'm really excited about this because I think this is one of the most important ones that we could do. And it's because groups can be the backbone of the organization and the sport. That without groups, we're stuck with one little person at a time. And groups just, I don't know, for me, I come from a core background, and my fondest memories are the groups and the rumble of the drums in the arena. And there's just really fond memories with groups. And when I look at our generation, so many people began twirling because they saw a group in a parade, or there was something that exposed them to that. It was not one twirler at a time. So I think that that's really the value of groups and what it can do for the growth of the sport, but more importantly than that, the growth of kids, which is what we're all here for. So I want to introduce the people that I've invited tonight, and this is a very selfish panel. This is a very selfish panel in that I'm personally connected to each of these panelists, or they're in our state, which I'm so proud to have so much twirling in the state of Michigan. So, no one else sees my little Brady Bunch screen, but where I'm seeing it. So the first person is Brenda Minnick. And Brenda is from Fort Wayne, Indiana, around in that area, has the Rising Stars Corps, and she is mainly recreational and parade. And then a select group of those kids go on to competition. And the thing that I love most about Brenda is that we have always had just an amazing relationship, and that she gives kids an amazing technical background. There's no one that goes on to another coach that you have to correct anything. She's got it going on. And she's also the coach that says, okay, I've taken them this far, now you get to go. And there's such huge respect for that. So Brenda Minnick from Fort Wayne, Indiana. The next person is Patty McKenna from Long Island and the Sparklers. And anyone in USTA knows how legendary the Sparkler program is. And Patty has been with it from the time she was an athlete. And she and Linda, who's a daughter of the founders, the Walshes, are the best of friends and the people who have been the coaches the longest with the program. And Patty and I have had several years together, and she's just an amazing contributor to the sport from every level, from individual athletes and then working with the teams and the groups. And we kind of have a mutual love because of the guard thing. So she's got a color guard background and a twirling background, and just the legendary organization of the Sparklers, what they've done and how many people that they've contributed to their lives. Another panelist is Susan Usher from Saline, Michigan, and Saline Twirlettes. And I've been fortunate to be able to be around her and work with some of her athletes and see the work that she's been able to do. And again, creating phenomenal people, and the sense of family atmosphere is something that I watch from the sidelines, and I love their sense of camaraderie, family, and what they do to not just create great twirlers and great groups, but just have a program that creates great individuals. And the next person on the panel is Rhonda from Rhonda Mascaro with Twirl M's. Again, another Michigan person, which is why I have a connection to her here. And not only that, great respect for the group and what she's been able to do to create great competitors as individuals, but also with the groups that she has created and go on to be college twirlers. And finally, it's Allie Denny and Teresa Denny. And Allie is a featured twirler as Miss Boiler with Purdue, but she took over the Dolls program in Plymouth, Indiana. And they work mainly with a parade group, and it's amazing the number of twirlers, the number of kids they're able to introduce to the sport of twirling just through a summer parade program. So thank you everyone for joining me tonight, and thanks for being here for everyone else. As I said, we really need you. We need your voices, and we need your intelligence, and we need your input on how to make groups grow. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're just gonna go in. So Susan, I'm gonna start with you. The typical question of how did you get a group started?
Well, the group that I coach, Lean Twirlettes, actually was established in 1968. So it was established by a mom that had a daughter that twirled. And so for years it had gone on just the high school majorettes coaching those younger kids, like 12 and under. And so then the parents kind of wanted more, so they sought me out. So for the last 27 years now, I've taken over the group. And back then, they basically kind of were a rec program, recitals, parades. And so then when I came kind of entering into the whole competition world, and then a national team, kids that were really dedicated and made twirling their number one sport. So in 2018, celebrated the 50th anniversary, and we had the founding mom come to our party. So that was really nice to kind of have that history and still have that great tradition and have that continue.
So did you just kind of figure it out as you went along, or did you have someone before you that really showed you the way?
I figured it out. Wish I had someone that could have helped me, but just been figuring it out all these years.
Okay. Rhonda, how did your group get started?
So this is my fourth group. Pretty much everywhere I live, I start a group. I was 18 when I had my first group, and it was given to me by Steve DeMarco, who was needed a coach for a group, and I was in a neighboring town to where he was twirling in college, and that's how I got started. And that group was a pure parade drum bugle corps group. We marched in 35 parades summer, and it was in a very poor community, and it was an opportunity for children to just have something. It cost $6 a month to belong, and we bought a bus. We took the kids to Canada. We went to a parade. So I did that through college, and then I moved to Michigan and started a group in Utica. Moved to Troy. Took that group to Troy, stopped teaching, and I gave that group to Derek and a lot of students that wanted to continue in a competitive way. Derek took them and did great things with them. And then after Maya was 5, Maya's my daughter, we started a group here in Commerce Township because I couldn't get her to twirl. So I said, let's get your friends together, and what's your favorite color? It's purple, and what do you want to call them? Twirl M's. And so here we are, and now she's a physician in North Carolina, and I'm still teaching the twirlers. And it's been 21 years. And in here we started as a rec program and just built it into parades and recitals. And then as I saw kids that seemed to have some interest, we started private lessons, and now we're a recreation and a competitive program, teams, individuals, and community-based performances.
Okay. All right. So we'll go into how some of those things have branched out then. Brenda, how did you get started?
Well, I was in a parade group probably since I was 7. Absolutely loved it. I did competitive twirling, but I loved parades. There was a local school that they actually had their own parade group, and my older sister started teaching for them. So I would go teach with her when I was probably 14. And then by the time I was 16, I took over that group for her. And then the school kind of got rid of it. So I decided I would start my own. And 35 years ago, I started my first group with 10 kids. And we just, would go to the local parades. And I just would go to, our schools were good about letting us rent. I actually still can rent our school to teach in it. So that's kind of where I got started. PAL clubs, YMCAs, just anywhere I could get started, and I started my own group.
Okay, so we're going to go into how you acquire those kids. So Patty, what is the origin of the student base for the Sparklers? Where do you find
we have a rec program also throughout Suffolk County. I think we're in like 20 school districts throughout the county. I kind of think it as like a feeder system for our travel program. We do recitals, we do 2 recitals, we do summer camp. They do parades alongside the travel team. So I think that's where they get the exposure to do competitive. We have tryouts for anybody who wants to come up from the rec program.
So with the initial, so how do you get those initial recreational kids? Is it through flyers? Is it through word of mouth? How do you do that?
We used to do it all through the flyers at school, each school that we were in each school district. We'd put flyers in, but a lot of the schools have now gone green, and we can't do that anymore. So we've reached out to like the Facebook page of the school. If we could get on there, contact the PTA, or if some of the parents who are involved in the PTA are on the Facebook page, we try to get things advertised there. Post things at libraries, grocery stores. They've even gone as far as, on the windshield at the shopping center, type of deal.
Okay, so Allie, are you following the way it was done before you? And Teresa and Allie, how are you acquiring kids for your parade group?
So the dolls was actually called Daphne's Dolls before, and Daphne started it when she was 16, way like however many years back. And then the last couple years, she decided that she wanted to like take a break from it. And so me and her daughter, Jillian, inherited it. And basically me and my mom like run it now, and Jillian will help like teach with us. And we've definitely changed the way like we run it. And my mom kind of knows more about like the running it part, because I kind of just come in and teach, and it's hard for me to do the background stuff when I'm at school. So she's kind of our background.
I'm the CFO.
So Terry, how are you finding kids for this parade group?
Well, a lot of it used to be for Daphne was word of mouth. But now
we've grown the numbers by a lot. It used to be like 50, 40s with Daphne, and then this last year has been 70s.
We have 75.
Yeah, and this year. So it keeps growing, which has been awesome.
That just makes my heart so happy.
Putting it on Facebook, and then we advertised at the radio station in town. But what really has helped is right here. She went into every elementary last year. As she was Miss Purdue, and she went into every elementary school in Plymouth and did a presentation as Miss Purdue, and that really helped jump our numbers last year. Just getting to see her, and she used to twirl at every high school basketball game, and so the kids would see her and know. And she's I know her mom, but she's a pretty good person to be around, a pretty good role model, and a lot of parents just want their kids to be around her. So that helped us out a lot. And then their friends will talk about it, and we get a lot of kids sign up, girls sign up from, so-and-so. My neighbor took baton last year and they want to try. And we do fittings for our outfits and things in February. And then classes don't start. Typically, we would have started last week.
Right.
We're gonna start June 1st. We got the green light to start June 1st. So
Nice.
Okay. So Rhonda, how do you use existing members to help publicize your group?
So word of mouth is probably our best thing. And the key to the program, when I started it, I knew that I had to have a program that could reach all the way through high school. So there was no twirling area, and very, very little. There wasn't a group or anything. So I tried to get the high schools to allow majorettes, and that has been really important. And then we have middle school twirling clubs now. So when kids see that they can learn an activity and do it at their school, that's been really helpful. And then they see one another. I saw the high school majorettes and I want to be like them, and they're in 5th grade, so they sign up. And we have a lot of junior twirling programs and try it for a day, bring a friend day, those kinds of things that bring kids into our program and let them try it out. So that we advertise with flyers and stuff with the school system, but I think word of mouth is the best way, and doing what they saw with you, Gary, another twirler, and want to be like them.
Right. So Susan, do you think your best advertisement has been the Saline High School?
I would say some, but I think it's also an area that even my group struggles with, just because I think being in the area we are in, there's so many opportunities. And I think that's the thing probably all the groups are always struggling with, and kids are so used to doing so many different activities, and financially in our area, they're not limited a lot. So I do school flyers, we do word of mouth, and definitely the high school meetups. I do think it helps, but I think it's always a constant struggle, I'll be honest.
Of course, of course. So Brenda, do you find, because I know like for Allie, it's a short time window. Do you have kids that only do the summer parade circuit? And do you find your competitive kids out of that?
My parade group runs from March, typically, from March until September. And then after I've done the parade group, then in the fall, I run kind of a semi-private competitive group. So at different ages, I'll do like 5 or 10 kids in a class through the winter to do contests. And I teach them the basics. Indiana still does the little costume modeling and the dress modeling and the basic box march. So I'll start them in a group like that for the winter. And then as they progress through that, then that's where they come in and decide, okay, we want to go farther with this. We've seen the competitions. We know what we've seen the girls like Allie competing, and, you know, that's how I expose the parade group to the competition side of it, is I just bring them in slow, and, you know, they're not committed to a hour lesson, or, you know, we just do a little group class every week, and whoever, they can do it even if they don't want to go to contests, they can still do it. But most of them end up going to a competition, and then you get, you know, a few of them hooked, and there you go.
So Patty, the thing with the sparklers I was always so impressed with, from between the recreational to the competitive side, was the coaches that you had, and each coach in each facility, so each coach had a school and they created a team routine. So was that the origin of it, that each coach would create team routines? And how do you decide parades and how they're doing that?
Yeah, so who's ever assigns, like I used to work the rec program, that's how I first started coaching, but I retired from that. I'm just strictly now with the travel team. But whatever school I was in on Monday or Tuesday, yes, it was my sole responsibility to show up at registration, to break the teams down, to select who goes in what team, their music, their costumes, and to write the routine. And all our coaches come from the travel system. You know, they have to be asked. You know, we don't just take whoever wants to coach. They have to be asked, and that's where we go from there. Sometimes it's a learn as you go, because I know for me, it was kind of learn as I go. It's a little different being on the other side of a gym floor, you know, when you make that first transition. So
Right.
It was a little different there, but that's how we work it.
And so how do you, now sparklers are different, that they're such a large organization. So those coaches get ownership of those teams, and they get to pick the costumes, and then they're part of the recital system, right?
Yes, we have 2 recitals a year. We have one in late January, February, depending on the school breaks and the Super Bowl, when that falls. And we call that an in-house recital, and it's basically just skills. We've broken down our system into like 4 levels, and it's beginner, intermediate, advanced with required elements. And it's just basic skills type thing. It's still a routine that each coach has to write. And then in June, that's the June recital, which is, that's when they wear the costume. It's a more fancier, like a dance twirl type of recital. And that's in each routine. So we're writing 2 routines a year for the same routine, for the same team.
Okay, and is that the goal of the rec program, is to have them just participate in recital and a parade?
Yeah, that's the goal, to have as many people exposed to the sport as possible, and then also to feed into the travel program. Our travel program can't exist if we don't have a big enough base. So that's kind of like a pyramid type of thing.
Right. And so what percentage of the recreational kids would you think are interested in going on to the travel team?
I think a lot of them are interested, because we also at each recital, we have the travel girls teams are performing, we have individuals who perform, so they get exposed to it that way. I think a lot of them are interested, and I think each year we maybe get about 20 who show up for tryouts. You know, we're on Long Island, so it's a big area. So a lot of times it's a distance thing, or they're involved in many other sports. You know, there's cheerleading, there's gymnastics, there's softball, there's all other things.
Right. So Susan, how do you secure facilities or practice space?
Well, always a difficult thing. I think a lot of it is because of relationships. Honestly, the places that we use, like I said, we have a longevity, so we are still able to use the schools. It's not always the best facility, like use a cafeteria a lot. And so we run our rec kids there, and actually the national kids have to come and twirl there as well. So it's low ceiling, and especially when there's basketball. But then I also I use like local school Milan, and I have a relationship with like the community ed director there, and their community ed is run a lot differently than Celine, so I can get in a lot easier. And I connected with the Christian school that now I've been running their gym for probably 10 years now. So it's a very small Christian school, so we kind of started a relationship, and even though they've had a lot of turnover, we're kind of a steady force for them. And because they don't do a lot in the summer and they have this beautiful gym, we're able to rent it. So every day in the summer I rent this gym. It's good income for them. So we're very lucky in that. No, but I think we've used every place, a barn, the fairgrounds, Scrub-A-Dome, all these different places over the years. We've been everywhere. Churches, I mean, you just use wherever you can get, and it's hard. It's very hard. And Celine, you know, they're a big school district. They have tons of activities, so we never see a big gym there, hardly ever. But I do have a pretty good relationship with one of the guys that does facilities, so every once in a while I can sneak in, you know, 2 hours here, 2 hours here. But it's also very expensive in Celine, so we don't see their gyms very often. So I say we're gym rats. We go wherever we can get a minute.
Oh yeah, I always laugh that you take your baton on tour. Like, just load your baton up and take it on tour. And the very best friend you can ever make is a custodian. Like, you need to take that person cookies all the time. So Rhonda, what about your gym situation? Is it again relationships?
With my program, my main program is run out of community education. So because of that, we get gyms. We have very nice gyms. Like Susan mentioned, in the basketball season, it can be a challenge. We might be put in the gym or the cafeteria. We have a wonderful relationship with the school that we're mainly at with our custodian. As a matter of fact, we nominated him for the Golden Apple Award in our district, and he was able to get it. He was presented at the Board of Directors or Board of Education, and we were a big part of cheering him on. So he's wonderful and helps us quite a bit. And it's a large air-conditioned gym, and we get the whole school every day of the summer. So we're very fortunate with that. The only issue is basketball season. It's a little bit challenging, but we don't get it we get it 2 days a week. So the other days I'm like Susan, looking for gyms, and we've developed a relationship with the church. We do some outside work. So we're fortunate to have a steady gym, but some of the other days we've got to do definitely some work, and we use all the connections we can get.
It takes creativity, doesn't it?
That's a lot.
Yeah. And so, like, Brenda has a studio, and sparklers have been changing about a little bit here. So Brenda, overhead for the studio, and when we talk about insurance, we all have to deal with that nowadays. So how affordable has a facility been, and then how do you handle insurance?
The studio, I mean, it's a small town, so the studio is not a huge expense. It is right now because I've got to do some roof work, but it comes with owning a building. As far as the insurance goes, I have just insurance on my building. I do not get ability per insurance, but if anything would happen, like, all my kids are covered, either through their own insurance. I mean, this is just things that I have never had an issue for Purdue.
Well,
But
one
I
of
know,
the bonuses of USTA is that your USTA membership includes insurance. So that's always a little bit assuring for part of it, that if they knock a tooth out or something like that, there is USTA insurance to help with that. But then your own personal liability is a factor to build in. Terry, have you dealt with insurance with the dolls?
Yeah, so back when Daphne was still teaching, I kind of got involved with her when the girls started competing together, and I got her to get her USTA coaching license so that we could get insurance to actually get the Purdue Twirlers to come to Plymouth. And once Allie was of age, she got her USTA coaching license, so then she could carry the insurance. So we go through that to be able to. We rent
The Parks Department
Yeah,
in our town.
it's a community building, and the Parks Department has nice and like yours up, and it's perfect for the recreational group, and we rent that from them. They charge us 10% of what we collect. That's what they charge. So
Okay.
if
Nice.
charge $10, they get $1 per kid, and then the insurance, it comes out of that. And they only make me get the liability for the year. Like I just have to give them one liability certificate for them.
Okay.
So that's the USTA, it makes it reasonable, and we can do that.
Okay. As far as the larger programs, obviously you have assistant coaches. So Susan, how do you engage assistant coaches, and how do you give them ownership of what they're doing while still being the ultimate person who's running the program? What job do you give assistant coaches, and how did you get them?
Well, what we do is we have all of our high schoolers in 9th grade. I offer them if they want to start becoming student teachers just to learn the process.
It's okay. No,
Nobody wants to
because you want to have a business.
Hang on just a second. Make sure you're muted, please, okay? Make sure you're on mute so we don't have any weird sounds coming through. All right, go ahead, Susan, I'm sorry.
There we go. So in 9th grade, I always ask my high schoolers if they want to become student coaches, just to kind of learn that process. And also, I think it's a good reflection on them too, as they are teenagers, to kind of learn that whole other aspect. And then as we get into summers or private lessons, I definitely manage it, because I feel like sometimes you can be twirling, maybe not the best coach. And I kind of put them through a little trial of maybe giving them a few lessons, see how it goes. I really watch to see how interactive they are, if they're up and moving, if they're just sitting on the wall, are they attentive? I really watch it, manage it. We do notes, because I do have a lot of guest instructors that come, because with a big group trying to manage everyone. And so we kind of follow a log. And so I'll write notes, which again takes time, to say, so-and-so needs, look at her opening, look at her horizontals. She needs harder tricks in her ending, or she had a new roll set last week. Can you make sure, or go over her memory? So I really, I keep on it and manage it. And for me, it's a slow process, because I feel like, if things aren't being done right, or if they're not emphasizing the technique, then it doesn't really help me.
Correct.
And so I start slow and move up.
Great. Rhonda, how do you find your assistant coaches, and how do you manage them?
Well, very much like Susan, I consider myself like the head coach, and then I go out from there. We have some wonderful teachers that work with us all throughout the year and help us with our teams and stuff. And those coaches have autonomy, and that for our recital, they can pick the music, they choreograph the routines and all of that. So we have some people that come back to us who have gone through the program and are college kids. But for our summer, we bring in expert coaches, college coaches. We bring in a lot of people, and our kids really enjoy working with them. And we love having the different people to provide some enthusiasm and some just different things. Than they're tired of seeing me all the time.
Right.
But we spend a lot of time letting our coaches know what needs to be taught, what I want them to do. They follow through.
Good communication skills with them.
I would say, I think you're making decisions based on the team and not just an individual. So sometimes that gets hard, because you do have to totally buy into the team aspect. Team comes first. So that's always hard, because you can't make individual decisions for each student. It's not just what Amanda wants. It's what is best for the whole team.
Right.
And
Rhonda?
it's just pleasing a lot of constituents. And I always tell there's a method to my madness. Just trust me. It may not be evident what I'm trying to accomplish, but there's a process and there's steps to take, and you can't skip 3 steps to be here. And so it's just trusting in the process and trusting in the triangle, the parent, the coach, and the athlete. And if you do that, it can be really successful. But if you don't trust, it can be a real problem. So
Oh my gosh.
It's just trust.
Yeah, I love that phrase. I love that phrase because I think we as coaches so much just look at these parents and kids and say, trust me along the way. And those parents that buy in and trust are the ones that are going to see the best results, at least in my experience.
Every
So,
time.
yeah.
Every time. That is such a true statement. The ones that trust you are the kids that go the farthest. There's no doubt. No.
Yeah. Well, there's a little bit of video issues going on, and when you speak, sometimes I can see you. So we're going to open it up now to questions. And if I can't see you, then go ahead and in the group chat, put a note that you have a question that you'd like to ask, okay? Because if you're waving your hand right now, I don't see your face. So the first question is Marshall. Go ahead and open your question up. And if it's presented to one person in particular, go ahead and do that. If not, then panelists, you may go ahead and jump in, and don't be shy about it. Just jump in and answer.
Thank you. Evening, everyone. So real quick, just so you know, because geography will play into this, I live in Baltimore City, which is I live between Wheaton and the Dynamics. And there's also the Illusions here. And it's a nice little USTA camaraderie group. So just so you know where I'm at, I'm actually in the city though, and everybody's out in the counties and like an hour to 2 hours away. So I do actually see a need here in the city, and I think it was Rhonda who mentioned earlier about one of the groups she had was you did like $7 a month or $7 a season, something like that. So what is your best advice for starting a group, knowing my location?
So my rec programs, and even my rec program now, we have the same costume year after year after year. And so we hold a basic garage sale at the beginning of every session, and people that have outgrown that costume can sell it. And we only make new when we have to. So we keep those really low. We offer just a weekly class and keep as much money out as possible. Our parades are free. Our community performances are free, and you just give them as much exposure as you can. They participate in the recital, but again, they wear that community outfit, and they're in a guaranteed of 3 acts. So the parent can see them 3 times. They're in a class routine and a closing number and an all group routine, and they wear a t-shirt and shorts and their community outfit. So we keep the price really low. And that's true for however long you want to be in our rec program, 6 months or 5 years, the price is low. So we just try to keep it so that it's very affordable and money's not an issue.
Well, and I think when you think about just the economics of it, and I always did this going to the sparklers, was that wouldn't you rather have 50 kids paying $5 a week than 1 kid coming in and paying you $50 an hour? And so Rhonda, the first time I got familiar with Twirl was where my daughter went to high school. They had there was a parade going on, and me, who thinks I know every twirling group in existence, sees this little group in a parade, and they were adorable. So when it's in t-shirts and shorts, they still had great hair. They still had bows in their hair. They still had expectations of what they were going to look like, but you could tell it was a community program, but it was a community program with a standard of excellence. So I think that is crucial to whatever you're going to do, that there's great money in these groups. I mean, there is a group right now in Michigan that doesn't teach technique and quality twirling, but I have to back off and go, they're getting batons in kids' hands, they're exposing it to it. But the ultimate goal of that group is kind of monetary. And she's just rolling out kid after kid after kid in all trophy contests, one trophy contest a year. And they all pay like $5 for some person with very little experience to coach them. So I would rather we have these programs with quality, and if you can do it affordably. So Patty, the sparklers start out pretty affordably, don't they?
Yes. Yeah. The rec program is just a single registration fee. You know, maybe it's $20, $25, and then it's just a weekly fee. That's the rec program. There's 2 fundraisers they had to participate in. That's the fees. You know, they had to buy baton, they had to buy the little outfit, but they get,
Right.
I think they get a lot for their, a lot of bang for their buck there.
Well, and I think that there's nothing wrong with making money. And so I think that it's also out there that you can be very enterprise driven if you do, like do they have to wear the same outfit to practice? And is it a t-shirt that you sell? And are you selling the batons? And are you, there's every way to capitalize on the market that you're given. Because you know what, twirling coaches sell themselves too short. My daughter was a competitive gymnast. And I just know how much we had to pay as a gymnast, and she was never going to make it to the national level. So I think that we have to keep in mind the quality of instruction that we're giving. So Anne Marie, can you go ahead and ask the question that you're putting out there?
Yeah, what I was asking is when you guys say weekly, like I have my kids pay monthly, so they're supposed to come in the first lesson and pay monthly. So just out of curiosity, because I have the recreational group and a competitive group, are you having them pay like at the first of each month? That's what I'm trying to look at. Are you doing monthly, or are you doing like 6-week periods? What are you doing? Mostly I'm asking recreational, just out of curiosity. The competitive group, I think everyone here, if you have a kid that's doing competition, these people pay. I don't know about your weekly people. Those people that I'm most curious about, the non-payers.
Okay, so let's circle around. So Brenda, what do you do?
Okay, mine is a weekly fee, but they can pay it however they want. If they want to pay it at the beginning of the month, or if they want to pay for the whole year, I just, write down how many they've paid and they're charged. I tried that. It did not work for me.
Susan, what do you do?
I do terms, so I do 2 terms. So I do a fall term, and that usually starts in September, mid-September, depending on schedules. And I take it all the way through the end of January to get people through the holidays. And then I start another term, the winter term, then that would start February to June. And so each of those terms are like between 15 and 17 weeks. And I keep it around, it depends, like $11 to $13 a class. And so I ask for 50% up front when they sign up. And then I ask for the rest like 3 weeks later.
I'm a fan of that. In my program, like we started at first with 6 to 8 weeks, and it's a pain in the neck just from the administrative end of it. So it became a lot easier just to have a first term and a second term and then summer mini classes. Rhonda, what's your feeling on it?
So I run my program through the community education, and we run sessions. We do fall, winter, spring, and then summer camps. So they pay Walled Lake Schools community education for the classes, and we advertise it that way. And they're usually anywhere from 8 weeks to 10-week times, and then usually 5 summer camps.
And then Terry and Allie, are you just simply a summer session fee?
They do a sign-up fee, like a registration fee, and that gives them their outfit, a t-shirt, and when they start. But they pay weekly. But they can't, the parents, kind of like what Brenda said, we have a weekly fee. but they can pay for the month, they can pay for 6 weeks, they can pay for the whole summer if they want. We know how many weeks we're going to be. This year, we're not going to be allowing them to pay for the whole summer because we're not sure what's happening. We'll be weekly or monthly. But then well, the girls, I sit out front most days and I have a sheet and I just mark it off. And
it makes it easier for us so we don't have to really worry about the money most of the time unless she can't be there to check everyone in. So it just makes my life easier. When I have 10, 3, and 4-year-olds running in the door and their mom throwing money at me, then I don't have to have, like, we have 2 people kind of like divvying it up. So that is like a nice part.
But her mom has a very good envelope with a check sheet on top.
Yeah, so it's
and
organized.
they just have to mark it off, and we take care of it that way. And if they don't pay, because there are those no payers, I think that maybe Anne Marie was saying, it's good because it's not my business. I'm the unpaid CFO. I make nothing from this. So I have no problem telling parents that they owe the girls money and that they have rent to pay. They have to pay their insurance. And
we send it in notes though. So she does like slips. So she'll give it to the girl or the parent and it'll say on the top, like how much they owe, if they paid up. And then it has like notes about like what's the next parade or when's the next thing that we're doing. So
right. I do it nice. Yeah. I don't have a problem asking for money for the girls.
I know other people have questions. Can I just do a really quick follow-up with all of you? Do you charge them when they don't come? So they didn't come.
Yes.
Okay. Because I say that's my weekly thing. They would all have excuses why. So that's what I'm just trying to get.
We give 2 misses for the summer, 2 classes that they can miss and not have to pay. But if they miss more than 2 classes, then we charge them. That was kind of a grandfather thing that Daphne had done with them. So that's what we've kind of carried through because summer is hard sometimes. So they get 2 free misses.
Okay. Jen Marcus, you have a question. Jen? Oh, maybe she's off right now. Jen Marcus, one more shot. Do you have a question?
She's trying to unmute.
Right now, I just have her as mute. We'll go on right now. We'll come back to her. Christy.
Hi. So I had a couple of little questions. Number one, when Patty was talking about her recitals and she has like a requirement for what they do, I was kind of curious like what those require, what's the floor, what's the ceiling of it?
Okay, well, like we have 4 levels. We have a novice, beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and it kind of follows the progression of like the compulsory system. Like for novice, they have to show vertical figure 8s, right hand, left hand, horizontal, right hand, left hand. We don't allow them to try thumb toss if they're in the novice category. It's all about skill building because the ultimate goal is if they ever want to twirl in the travel program, they got to have some good technique to start with. We don't want to take kids onto the travel program and have to correct mistakes, but it happens. But that's really the basis of the levels, so that each coach at each school is creating the same type of routine. And in June at the junior recital, they do compete and they get high scoring junior team, whatever. So they want to make sure everybody's on the same page and we're producing a quality baton program.
Okay. The reason I asked that is because I'm finding I have a very, very, very small group. It was given over to me, the Spotsylvania Sparkettes in Fredericksburg, from Sharing Grants. And I'm finding that my girls are not, whereas they can do the basic things, when they try and do the competitive circuit, they're not competitive because novice is doing 2s and 3s.
Oh.
And I'm trying to figure out how to, because they're not ready to do that, but they want to try the competitive stuff. But they're going and just basically getting pushed off.
Right, and I think
so. I was curious what your levels were.
Yeah, that's difficult, and sometimes we start even our recreation kids off going to competition if they want, just doing basic strut, marching in a square. And in NBTA, we have best appearing and, some little things like that. In NBTA, we have special beginner solo. So that's a good level. They've never won a first place trophies or not won more than 2. So that can be helpful. And we try to steer those kids who are just getting started toward the smaller contests, not the state championships and things like that.
Right.
So that can be helpful too.
Yeah, and
you're going to find that in both organizations, that there's plenty of events for these kids that are special beginner, novice, anything like that. So I think it's just about being realistic and then making sure you're giving them a really strong foundation in basics. And then it can grow from there. Jen, did we get you on board yet? Close.
Hi there. Could you ask me?
Yes, there we go.
Hi, I'm sorry, my phone wasn't working. First, I just want to congratulate everyone. It's so impressive listening to all of you guys start these programs or continue them on and grow them. So I'm really inspired by all of you. A question I had and an issue that I had when I was trying to start a rec program is early on, the first and second year, I only had, 4 to 6 students, and they ranged from like 5 years old to like a 16-year-old. And so obviously I had to put them in the same class, but they learned at different time. They took different times to learn things. And then some weeks, because they were just at that rec level, they wouldn't come because they had homework or they just didn't want to come. And so what happened was I would teach something one week and I taught a program. And then the next week, those kids would know how to do what we learned last week, but that person that missed the previous week wouldn't. And so then I just felt like I was struggling a bit of trying to inspire each athlete to continue to grow, or each girl. And so I was just wondering, I know all of your programs seem to be well established at this point, but is there any advice to beginning and having that different range and when people aren't interested in coming every week to class?
Yeah. Susan, do you have an answer for that?
That's a good one. That's a constant struggle. And what I've seen is a lot of older girls now, or where I first started, where we get 20 little rookies, all, age 5 or 7, where now I've gotten a lot of older girls, and, you want to be sensitive to that as well. Obviously, you don't want to discourage. So that's where I really use my student teachers to try to break people off, so that if someone misses, or there's 2 girls that are a little bit older so they can get attention, then I use my student teachers to break them off. So
more than one person. Okay, so
Yeah.
Patty, how do Sparklers handle that when you're learning one team routine for everyone and people have missed?
For the rec program or the travel program? For the rec program?
Yeah.
It is difficult. You can't control who shows up, who doesn't. I think we're all in the same. We all have to deal with that. I wouldn't take it necessarily as a reflection on myself, but you just have to just keep going. You still want them to come. Sometimes it's like bring a friend. Maybe do a bring a friend day where they bring a friend who's not, a member, and you try to build it that way. Sometimes you just have to. You have those ranges you said from down to primary to junior. You just try to make the most entertaining thing. Maybe do a routine with this, big person, little person type thing. That's about all I can say about that.
So just making it fun for them.
Got to figure it out. Yeah.
Okay. So Audrey's asking if you're going for quality or quantity. So I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this. So Brenda, are you trying for numbers, or you're looking at the quality of what can come out?
Both. Definitely want the quality. You're going to have some of the kids that in a rec program that aren't going to be your competitive quality, but you still want to teach them that they're in a class, they need to listen, they're there to learn. It doesn't matter, how many kids are in the class. It's just you need to try. You're going to have those kids that are not going to pay attention, and it is hard to give them that attention when you're working with 30 kids at a time. They sometimes, move off to the side, but you have to focus on those kids too. You just don't want them there because it's another body in the classroom. So
Right.
it gets hard because you're in a group setting with that many kids. You definitely have several different interests. Some are there because they want to be. Some are there because their mom or somebody wants them to be, or they thought they'd like it and they don't really like it, but they're there because they signed up. So, yeah, it's just working with a big recreational group. You have so many different. You just have to look at all of them.
Right. Rhonda, what's your philosophy?
Well, I definitely quality in good basic skills, but I would say that we really tried to make it fun. And we have for our rec kids, we have a Queens and Kings club that we do every winter. And once you learn the basic tricks, you get a little prize packet, and we make a big deal out of it, announce your name. We have different things that they can go to the awards table and get because they mastered a certain trick or a certain level. So to pack off what Jennifer, you're saying, you want to give a reason for the rec kids to really show up, and in a sense, once they get hooked, but the rec kids every week, oh, I can't wait to come because it's, bring a friend day, wear a green day. There's always something that we're trying to do each week that makes it really fun and a reason for them to come. Perfect attendance award at the recital, so you can make it fun and have quantity while still teaching the basics. But it takes a lot of work to be creative and think of reasons why, because they have a lot, like Susan's area, my area, they have a lot of choices on how to spend their money and how to spend their time. So we have to make it something that they can't wait to come to baton.
I think that's so valuable, because I used to say, like, Brenda had a gift that I didn't have, especially coming as a coach who started as a private coach. Brenda had the ability to hook these kids and give them a great foundation that I did not have the talent to do. And so when I started teaching more groups from the ground up, there had to be a moment of surrender. Like, that was really frustrating for me, because I love grabbing each kid and polishing them until they shine. And in a class setting, sometimes you just can't do that. And I remember that moment of surrender of, like, I'm doing the best I can, and if this kid's gonna, like, shine, great, and move to the next level, then I can do better. But at a certain point, I got to make it fun, whatever level they choose to be at. So Tasha, you have a question.
Yes, I'd like to apologize first for my mute faux pas earlier. My 15-year-old
no worries.
was feeling awkward about being the youngest one on here, but I have the privilege of teaching at her school and being her twirling sponsor, and this year she started a twirling club, and I was just curious as to how do you guide the younger coach and stay back, especially like I teach, like how do you step back and allow everything to happen?
Okay, so Patty, how old is the youngest sparkler coach, and when you let them coach, and how do you encourage them?
It's probably 16. They might start as an assistant. And they still have to take the coach's level 1 from USTA, so they have insurance. They started as an assistant coach to the coach in the rec program. And my experience with that is I've had a couple of them when I did rec program. Since we have 2 recitals a year, which I said before, they've all come through the rec program, so they're kind of familiar with it, being the athlete, but now they have to be, like I said, on the other side of the gym. They have to now be the coach. And sometimes they forget what was that like when they were in-house. So for the first half of the year, I just let them watch. I have them clean up and do stuff like that, fix a form. But when it comes to the June recital, that's when I'll start preparing them. I'll start the initial routine, and I'll say, okay, next week you have to do the next phrase. If it's 16 counts or 24 counts, I said, you have to do that. I said, you can either write a baton part, or you have to change the form and write a baton part. So I think for me, that was a way to move their twirling coaching career on that way. We also have an evaluation we have to complete to see if they're meeting their goals, if we want them to come back and do an assistant coach, are they interactive, are they self-starters, do we have to constantly get them to go correct somebody, are they prepared, do they show up on time, stuff like that.
Wonderful. Susan, how do you train your younger coaches?
Sort of the same way. One thing I learned when I was young from one of my first coaches, Marlene Ray, was to do everything backwards. So when I first teach rookies, I call them rookies, the new ones. I have my student teacher, I start teaching them how to do it backwards. I do everything backwards, just so that way your eyes are on the class the whole time. And so I start kind of similar with our student teachers and kind of getting them involved in how you teach and you know, how you learn the system, and kind of, you know, it's more about managing the class more than teaching the baton skills at that point, especially when they're little. So same thing, student teachers, they come in and then lots of direction. They get that constructive criticism, not only with their own twirling, but then also coaching. So that's how we do it.
Well, and I think it's all about opportunity. And to just kind of go back with my own career, I happen to have a coach who let me help teaching the core when I was like 10. And I always say that my band director is the biggest influence in my life, because I get to do what I do because he looked at me at 15, and I've been twirling with the band since I was 10 with a high school band. And he had looked at me at 15 and he said, Kyle, we're starting a color garden. You're going to teach it. And without that opportunity, and without him just saying, you're going to do this, and without people saying, Kyle, you can do this. And so my spot coaching from 10 until 15 was exactly that. It was just spot coaching. I didn't care if I got paid, but my own coach said, Kyle, why don't you take this person and work with her, and you can clean up parts of this. And I think when you get those opportunities, because, you know, the military kind of teaches you that your only job is to teach someone to replace you. And I think if you hold on too tight, you're not giving other people opportunities, and you're only showing your insecurities instead of what you can do. So the minute you give everyone opportunity, it's better for the world. So I think that all of you, by having these extra people go on, and so probably the common thread of these groups that I'm hearing is that all of you have other people who could step into your role at some point in time, or at least be, you know, a bad copy of what you're doing, but they would know what to do. And so I don't know if you've thought about that or not, but that's kind of my feeling when I'm hearing here, is that your big groups hasn't just been about growing twirling and growing your business. It's been about growing other leaders. And I don't know if that.
And my junior teacher program, you have to be advanced and you have to be in high school, but I have a class that I give. I teach the kids how to give compliment sandwiches. I talk to them how important that is. I talk to them about, you know, being on time, which means being early. They get 2 chances. If they're not on time, meaning early, they're out. You know, my greatest compliment is when the band directors talk about the majorettes doing great things without me being there, and then I know that they're trained well and they understand the importance of hard work and being a good role model and all of that. I think it just translates. So teaching these kids how to teach and how to be responsible, it just goes way beyond teaching. It goes into college and applications and interviews and just a lot of things.
It's more than learning how to twirl a baton sometimes.
It's the legacy of your group. Exactly. So Audrey just had, you know, chasing down money, and I'm that person too. I'm the worst at money. I hate chasing down someone for money. So do you have to take it out on the child? I mean, the ultimate thing is, at what point does you tell a parent that the child can't participate in the parade because they owe funds? How do some of you handle that?
That's what I do. You can't. I have 2 checkpoints: the recital in December and the parade in May. There's 2 checkpoints, and I've never had a child not participate. Everybody pays. They want their children to participate.
Yeah.
So I think that it just have to do that.
As compassionate people involved with children, of course, our hearts are there. But I think you do have to remember, at the end of the day, this is your business. And the rest of us have to pay our bills. And in every other area, they have to pay their bills. So yeah, you feel bad about the child, but I think you have to remember this is your business. Marshall, you had another question.
Yes, sorry. I had to put myself on mute there. So by the way, thank you, everybody. I've been taking notes nonstop. I really appreciate this because I'm thinking about actually doing this. And my question is geared, it's two questions back to back towards everyone, but Susan, sounds like you have the oldest group continuously in the group here. So I'd like to start with you and sort of then just progress the way we started in the beginning. What were some of the best fundraisers you did? And what is your advice for longevity?
Well, good question.
Well, we've done everything with fundraisers, everything under the sun, I would say. And we've grown through that process because we've kind of started with all those grassroots kind of little things, candy bar sales, all those things. And now moved up all the way because we were part of the world team of doing corporate sponsorships and that. But one of the best things, and something I'm thinking once we get through this, we might go back and do, we always did a car wash. And even though it's exhausting and it's a lot of hard work, I'm looking back at some of those simple fundraisers sometimes are the best, because not only can you raise a few bucks, but it does a lot for bringing your group together and also having the kids bond in a different way. So
Had camaraderie listed down here at one point.
yeah, I mean, some of those fun things, we've done things, we do kind of traditional things. We do a poinsettia fundraiser. We do some traditional things so that people start looking for those things every year, so you don't have to find new sources. The thing is, people don't want to be nickel and dimed a lot nowadays. So you have to find kind of creative things that people may do anyhow. They may do a movie night. They may do a trivia night, things that are family kind of entertainment things. For longevity, it definitely takes investment and a lot of time, I would say. People have to know that it's a good program. I think that's, parents are looking for that. They're looking to build character for their kids.
One of the longest running things, at least with the Sparklers, Patty, was the bingo night. And I know how much the parents were connected to that. And that was kind of the identity of the Sparklers. So I'm assuming the bingo night doesn't exist anymore. And if it doesn't,
No,
how did you make up for that?
We'll run bingo. Well, we don't own the building, but we rent it out, and we run bingo. We used to run bingo like 4 or 5 times a week in evenings and during the day. Now I think we just do it 2 or 3 times a week, but of course we're closed down.
Yeah.
So, and that's run by the travel program. It's not an in-house rec program fundraiser. But I just want to mention 2 fundraisers that we did last year and this year that totally do not cost any money. One of the parents, I can forward this information to you, Kyle, later. I don't know what it's called, but we collected old shoes, old footwear, and we get paid by the pound. It doesn't cost you anything. You clean out your closet, your neighbors, people at work bring you stuff. We got paid by the pound. And the other fundraiser that did not cost us any money was, we have Savers. It's like a Salvation Army type store. And again, they will pay you by the pound, but it's only soft items. It's clothes, shoes, coats, jackets, blankets, pillows. We just bring it all down there. We have a designated day. When we had our facility, we would just say, bring it on down there. This is where we kept it. And people showed up. We pulled it over. We put it into, they take it and store it, weigh it, and we got a check. So those are 2 fundraisers that didn't cost us any money.
And do you have parents that organize that for you?
Yes, because the shoes fundraiser was actually done by the IC parents.
Okay.
So
all
that
right.
was an IC fundraiser,
Yep.
the shoes. And Sabres, I think, also started that way, but that's something we just continue. It's on hold now, but.
Right, right.
You know.
And Brenda, do you do a fundraiser?
We do fundraisers. Probably, we've done several. We've sold just about everything you can sell. Probably the best one is popcorn.
Yeah.
We found a good group, and you get 50% profit. It comes prepackaged per kid. It is the easiest fundraiser I have ever done. And it's easy to sell. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to program in your order, and you don't have to wait for them to send you money back for your profit. You just pay what it costs you, and you already have your fundraising money, and it comes prepackaged for every kid. It's as easy as could be.
Well,
It's-
and Melissa,
it's a
Melissa put in that there's a couple fundraisers in the chat, and if you have anything good, go ahead and put it in the chat. People can catch it, because again, this is another topic we could probably go on another hour, and I know so many people have questions, and again, you coaches are the most valuable coaches that we have. When you are the ones interested and putting your energy and time into a group, it's the hardest work that you can do. So on that end, and the quarantine here, let me finish up tonight by asking each of you, if the quarantine has motivated you or discouraged you, and what have you done with it with your group? Brenda.
Oh, I'm going to say it really hasn't done either, because my group's pretty solid. They're all, of course, anxious to get started, and I know that whenever we can, and I'm hoping June 1st, obviously we're not going to have as many parades because all of July has been canceled, but they're all still on board and ready to go. So
Awesome.
As soon as we get the green light.
Well, Susan, I know you've had a challenge because of the delay of World, but what has the quarantine done positively or negatively, and how are you dealing with it?
Well, we're kind of obviously still working through that. It's brought on a lot of emotions for a lot of kids. And because Worlds is so far out, that changes a lot for a lot of the kids. So it has been very difficult. So those kids, that's my national team, that's my show corps. Those kids were really training intensely up until this happened. And so we're trying to do Zoom like every, once a week, but definitely optional, kind of letting those kids have a chance to just kind of chill and take a pause, because it was so intense and so much planning this past year.
Right.
With my rec kids, now they're kind of, my kids that I call like new competition, they're kind of getting involved. They're kind of leading the spark right now. So they're sending videos, catching their one turns for their first time. And you kind of forget about those things sometimes. And because I had such an intense year, that's kind of been refreshing. So kind of flipping gears a little bit. And we'll see what it brings.
And Allie, what about you? I mean, you've kind of waited to get started. Are they just ready to go?
Yeah, I posted last week about offering some private lessons because Indiana has been opening up, and so I got a lot of interest with that. So the last week, and then this week, and then the next before our group lessons start, I'm doing private lessons. So that's just another way to like see the girls and just get to doing something for like myself, just because we are a couple weeks late with starting our group. But yeah, it hasn't changed much, but I know they're all going to be very excited to start. So the first 2 weeks are going to be a big adjustment for them to even be around people. So we're going to just have to like adjust being around each other for a while, especially the little girls. It'll be hard to get their attention. Yeah, I'm prepared for that. So that's like the biggest change.
And I have lots of hand sanitizer and Clorox wipes. We're going to sanitize when they come in. We're going to Clorox wipe the batons when they come in, and then when they leave, they're going to sanitize.
Procedures to figure it out. And Patty, what about you guys? Has it been discouraging, or have you found new ways to be motivated? What's happening with this?
Well, we found more ways to keep the girls engaged, whether it's not just always about baton. We have posted every month on Instagram. We have a calendar, and it has every day is a different thing. Like today is Tuesday trivia, and so there's posted questions about the sparklers. So we've tried to do that. I've seen some of the coaches are doing Zoom lessons. Some of the coaches are actually still doing in-person lessons by keeping social distancing. I actually did one on Saturday with some of my students, 3 sisters, social distance, mask, the whole thing, but they want to do those compulsory critiques. So we're getting back that way. So it's just the ones who were really into it before all this, or the ones who are still really into it now. And we're just trying to do the best we can, like everybody else. I don't see us getting back into this until maybe September.
Right.
And then there's a point of if school does reopen, are they going to allow rec programs to use their gym after school?
Right.
That's another caveat. We don't know what our future is at all.
The unknown. Rhonda, how about you in this quarantine with Twirlings?
So I have run now 9 weeks of incentives, different things, making board games, making bingo cards, doing virtual contests. Right now we're in a create your own routine contest. But everything is optional because I think we don't know the impact that this is having on children, this long distance learning for school, being at home, not being with your friends. So I've been very deliberate in making everything optional. We have not done Zoom classes because here in Michigan, we just cannot rely on the weather. Not every child has a high ceiling, 3-story family room. Some people do, some people don't. So I just have been trying to make it fun. I've been getting texts and little vignettes to critique, and everything's for free. And we're just trying to give every child, children that I have not heard from, I check in on them every couple weeks, just how are you, have nothing to do with baton. And I just think it's a time right now to think of children as children and not worry about baton, and in the sense that we can make baton an outlet, great, but just to let them know that somebody's here and cares about them. This is really what it's all about at this stage, I think.
I completely agree. And all of you have so much valuable information. I know that this is going to be a really valuable video to be reposted, even with all the blanks in there as far as the video. You haven't all come through. But thank you for your input and everything you give to kids. And I think I think that all of you will be the leaders in figuring out the new way. Whether it's, sanitizing batons, and Audrey's posting about taking temperatures. And I think you just have to be on the cutting edge of how the new things will happen. And I have to think that you have to be the hope of what children can still do. So I just want to thank you all for all of your positivity and everything that you give to the program. But I think also these Twirl Talks every week have just been, I started it mainly for myself, and that it was just a nice outlet to have something different to do. And I think it's been fun to watch the twirling community come together in all different ways. So I hope that it continues. And I just want to thank you all for joining tonight, and it'll be posted. And if you have any other information, it is Rising Stars and the Dolls and Sparklers and Twirlems and Celine Twirlettes. There's just great information to have. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting this together.
Best wishes. Stay safe.
Hope to see you
All right.
real
Have a
soon.
great evening. Thanks, you.
Bye.
Safe, y'all.
Thank you.